Good evening, YouTube. Been meaning to get around to doing this review for a while. Things keep getting in the way. Been away for a while. I wasn't very well. Things in the family, but I'm here finally. I got this a while ago. mecarmy ek3r, I think it is, in copper. Nice box. Really like this. I wish more knife companies did this. Nice simple hard case box with foam inner. Got a few bits and pieces in there. There's one thing that confuses me about this knife. They've gone to the extent of having a hard case box with foam liners, these nicely printed little cards. Presentation is really nice. The knife itself is quite disappointing. I really wanted a copper knife, just because, as most people want them, I like the way it patinas. Copper or brass, I wanted something in one of those materials. And I kind of thought, looking at the pictures on Heine Haynes, that this would be something like a copper ek3r, which I like as a budget knife, but with D2 steel and copper scales. I thought that would be really nice. I was really looking forward to getting this one. It's about 50 quid, so it's not a budget, it's not a cheap budget. You're kind of getting up there towards the mid-range stuff. But unfortunately, it looks much nicer in pictures than it does in person. And I'll show you why. The first thing that you notice when you take this out is it's quite thin. There's no other frame to this apart from the copper scales. They don't fit particularly well. You can see the gapping down the side. The copper itself isn't completely flat. I don't know whether I can get the camera to show this. There you go. You can see it's actually quite pitted, which I guess isn't the end of the world. It will patina anyway, but being a bit OCD, I like to mirror polish things. I was immediately wanting to take this apart and mirror polish it. Then you open it and it's not smooth. It's quite graunchy. You can feel steel against copper on that. I don't know whether it's not got good enough washers in it or whether that is just an issue that you face when you're making the frame of the knife essentially out of a soft metal, and you've got a hard metal for the back spring and the blade. The blade itself is obviously D2. One of the things I do like about it, it's got a nice grind on it. It came sharp. I like the stonewash finish on the blade, but you can probably see on there, can you see here, there's a shadow in the blade finish. That was like that from new. It's quite annoying when you take it out of its packet and it's got that mark on there. You can't do anything about that. I was opening my first bottle of ferric chloride to do some stonewashing. Stupidly, without thinking, I took this out of the packet and used this to pry the little cardboard top off. Got some on the end of the blade, which then marked the stonewash. So by this point, I couldn't send the knife back. And I think had it not been for that, I probably would have sent it back, because my main issue with this is just fit and finish. For a knife of this price, it shouldn't be graunchy when you're opening it. That's not right. If you look carefully, the back spring and the knife blade don't mate up properly. The back spring is actually higher than the back of the blade when it's fully open, and even when it's fully closed, that back spring is not flush with the back of the knife. It's just little issues like that. It does not feel like a £50 knife, not when compared to other things. It feels more like a £10 knife. I know you've got D2, I know you've got copper, but if you're gonna do it properly. The clip I don't like. It's far too wide. It's too big for the knife. The screws seem to be made out of cheese. The first T6 thing that I put in there felt like it had stripped the screws. In fact, it didn't. When I put another one in, I managed to get them undone. But that's another problem. I mean, this is rubbing. It's graunchy when you open. So you think maybe this is too tight. But then look at that side to side play in the blade. And if you want to tighten that up, you can't get to the pivot point without taking this stupid clip off. The clip itself is not proper deep carry, which is something that really annoys me. Why don't they just do all of them deep carry, particularly for this market where we don't want to advertise the fact we're carrying a knife. And the next thing, compared to the Pilar, the blade stock itself is very thin. I suppose I don't mind that. In the end, it's D2, so fairly strong, it's tool steel, so I'd let that one slide. I do like the chunkiness of the Pilar, although this is much thinner behind the edge than the Pilar. But then you look at the ergos. The Pilar is brilliant for that. It's really well designed. You've got that forward finger choil, which means even for a small knife, you can get a full grip on it, four finger grip, and you've got control over that blade. It can't close on you. So yes, it's only ek3r, it's a mid-range steel, it's softer than some of the super steels and stuff, but for people who don't really hard use their knives and just aren't knife people, they want something to carry day to day, I think the Pilar's a great design, it's a great option, well executed. This, on the other hand, being a bigger knife than the Pilar, doesn't have any forward finger choil. So you've got this weird hump at the front. If you hold it where you would naturally want to hold it, it's only really a 3-finger knife, despite being bigger. And if you choke up on it, and which isn't the most comfortable, you put your forward finger at the front, then your first finger is actually touching the edge. So you're going to cut yourself eventually. There is no finger choil to stop this from closing. And the worst thing of all with this, being a proper slip joint, it has a back spring, it doesn't have any half stop. So as somebody else put on their review on Heine Haynes, this is probably the most dangerous slip joint that I own. I did cut myself within the first 5 minutes, because if you close it like that, there's nothing to stop it from closing on your finger. There is no half stop, no finger choil, no safety mechanism. So if you have this knife, I would say be very mindful when you're closing it, because if you're going to cut yourself with any slip joint, it's probably going to be this one. It's just little things like that. Why didn't they make that up properly? Why didn't they have a half stop? Small oversights, and you can say, well, it's only a £50 knife, but other people manage it. You know, design wise, the Pilar is light years ahead. Much rather, I wish this was in D2. I'd like some copper scales, that would have been perfect. But other options, yes, it's a Chinese made knife. You can say people have their opinions on Chinese made, but here's a petrified fish. Lovely made knife. D2, same as this. Lovely grind on the blade. I love that blade profile. Nice milled G10, the attention to detail on the pivot. Everything's mated up nicely. It runs on bearings. It's smooth as anything. Lovely centered. This was 30 quid. So I bought this direct off AliExpress, excuse me. So it's nearly half the price of that. Complete light years ahead. So in short, what do I like about this? I like the D2. I quite like the stonewash. Quite like that sweep on the shape of the blade. I like the belly. I like copper as a whole. I just think it was poorly executed. It's poorly put together. Bad materials. Not really much attention to detail. No, it's not a very good review, but I would say, unless you're just after the box, this is probably one to avoid. Hope that's of use to somebody. At least if you're looking for a copper knife, I would say spend your 50 quid on some copper scales for one of your existing knives, rather than go down this route. I think probably what I will do with this is use it as a bit of a project. I'm going to take it apart and see if I can figure out what's causing that graunching. I think you can already see it. It's rubbing the stone washing off the blade, so it's clearly rubbing against the copper, which is what I can feel. think I'm going to take that apart. I'm going to mirror polish this copper. I'm going to grind in a small finger choil, just enough so that my finger isn't touching the blade when it's there and I can choke up on it, and see if there's something that I can do washer wise to kind of smooth it out. I'm also going to refinish this blade. I think something along the lines of what I did with the little cheap pry bar, and just acid wash it and then hand rub it with up to 2500 grit, so it's super smooth and you get a nice finish. I might do something like that with the blade just to cover up the mistake that I made. It's too late to send it back because I did that, otherwise I would have done, but I'll see if I can make something nice out of it. I do want a copper knife. I want to see how it progresses over time, how the patina sets in on it, but I kind of wish that I'd picked a different one. Sorry, anyone from mecarmy, if you end up watching this, but thumbs down on this one. Hope this is of use. Ta-ta.